No one else, we will see only video of Sukhada Mataji and no one else's. So even if you are shy, you can still keep your video on, but everyone else will see only Sukhada Mataji. So I will pass in this to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, sure, thank you.
Yeah, you can start, Mataji. Sorry.
Oh, all right, very good. Okay. All right, so today we're going to be reading and discussing Bhagavad-gita, chapter 3, text 30. So you can read it along with me if you have your Bhagavad-gita. Mayi savani karmani sanyasyadhyatma chetasaha nirashir nirmama bhutva yujasva vigatajvara. Mai, unto me, sarvani, all sorts of, karmani, activities, sannyasa, giving up completely, adhyatma, with full knowledge of the self, cetasa, by consciousness, nirashi, without desire for profit, nirmama, without ownership, bhutva, so being, yujasva, fight, vigatajvara, without being lethargic. And the translation by Srila Prabhupada, therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Angana Timarandasya Ganangana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So the purport by Srila Prabhupada. And this is pretty amazing. It says this verse clearly indicates the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. So I thought that was amazing, out of all the verses, that this verse clearly indicates the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord instructs that one has to become fully Krishna conscious to discharge the duties as if in a military discipline. Such an injunction may make things a little difficult. Nevertheless, duties must be carried out with dependence on Krishna, because that is a constitutional position of the living entity. So there's a phrase they use in the military. They say, ours is not to wonder why. Ours is just to do and die. So it's like you just follow that instruction, no matter what. You don't question it. So this is the situation with Arjuna, and it's kind of like, in the Vedic culture, if a woman has a son who's been recently married and she wants to teach the daughter-in-law how to cook, it can be a little touchy, everything's new to the daughter-in-law. So she teaches the daughter, and in that way, the daughter shares that information with the daughter-in-law. So likewise, in this situation, Krishna's speaking to Arjuna, but Arjuna represents us, all of us. These instructions are directly being given to us. The living entity cannot be happy, independent of the cooperation of the Supreme Lord, because the eternal constitutional position of the living entity is to become subordinate to the desires of the Lord. I always remember this little example that used to be given in this situation, that you can take a fish out of water And you can give the fish everything imaginable, give them a new Mercedes-Benz, latest model, plus a BMW, plus, all the TV, everything you can imagine. But all the fish really wants is put me back in the water. It can't breathe, So by the same token, we can receive so many material opulences, but unless we're in our constitutional position, which is a servant of Krishna, we're never really going to be satisfied. We won't really be able to breathe easily. Arjuna was therefore ordered by Sri Krishna to fight as if the Lord were his military commander. One has to sacrifice everything for the goodwill of the Supreme Lord, and at the same time discharge prescribed duties without claiming proprietorship. So in the first line of the verse, Mayi Sarvani Karmani, just talking about all of our activities. Second line, Sannyasa Adhyatma Chetasa, a transcendence, that the high consciousness, and Nirishir Nimamo Bhutva, that without desire for profit and without ownership. And the last, you just saw Vigata Jwara, speaking about being able to fight without any lethargy. So Arjuna, he's in this situation where he's a little confused, and he says to Krishna, I'm not going to fight. So Krishna's listening, just like oftentimes, we may have a duty and we may be not cooperating with the Supreme Personal Godhead. So Krishna, he's listening to us, but he's waiting for us to ask for help, really, and ask for enlightenment. Just like with Draupadi, when Draupadi is being disrobed, she's asking, Yudhisthira, Bhima, Nakula, Sahadev, Arjuna. She's asking everyone to help. Grandfather Bhishma, nobody's helping. So when this is all over, she says to Krishna, Krishna, why did it take you so long to come and help? And Krishna said, well, you were calling everybody else. As soon as you called on me, then I gave you unlimited sorry. So by the same token, we have to be listening and understanding what Krishna wants. So it's a little tricky. Sometimes we may not be totally sure what Krishna wants, but through prayer and through consultation with advanced devotees, the picture can become clearer. Arjuna did not have to consider the order of the Lord. He had only to execute his order. The Supreme Lord is the soul of all souls. Therefore, one who depends solely and wholly on the Supreme Soul without personal consideration, or in other words, one who is fully Krishna conscious, is called Adhyatma Chetas. Nirishi means that one has to act on the order of the master, but should not expect furtive results. The cashier may count millions of dollars for his employer, but he does not claim a cent for himself. Sometimes we see, Sankirtan devotees, they may be collecting, thousands and thousands of dollars, but they don't use it for themselves. They're using it in the service of the Lord. Similarly, one has to realize that nothing in the world belongs to any individual person, but that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. That is the real purport of Mayi, or unto me. And when one acts in such Krishna consciousness, certainly he does not claim proprietorship over anything. This consciousness is called nirmama, or nothing is mine. And if there is any reluctance to execute such a stern order, which is without consideration of a so-called kinsman in the bodily relationship, that reluctance should be thrown off. In this way, one may become Vigata Jwara, without feverish mentality or lethargy. So, Arjuna is in the situation where he's facing, grandfather Bhishma and Dronacharya, these people he had so much respect for. So it was very difficult, you can imagine, to take this instruction to heart. Also, Krishna explains to him that this has all been preordained. This is finished. It's like you can either go ahead and do your duty and basically without claiming any result, without claiming that I did this and I did that, which is often the which is often the mentality, that fruit of mentality is like, look at what I did. Generally not so much spoken about if things go wrong, but if things are going well, taking all the credit for it. When actually Krishna says to Arjuna, Nimitta matram, just become an instrument. And in that way, Krishna can use us as kind of a conduit. He can work through us. So that's the glory of the devotee. Not that he's doing so much on his own. Here it says, Nidashi and Nirmama, that he's doing it without profit and without proprietorship, that he's becoming Krishna's instrument. So this is the situation that Arjuna is in. And Krishna wants him to do it without a feverish mentality, but just doing, or lethargy, to do it as well as he can, because after all, Arjuna is a very competent warrior. When he was taking lessons from Dronacharya, when he would get a new exercise, a new military exercise, it says that he would work on it all night, and in the morning he would have perfected it. So he was Dronacharya's best student. So now's not the time for lethargy. Now's the time for him to do the very best that he possibly can. Everyone, according to his quality and position, has a particular type of work to discharge, and all such duties may be discharged in Krishna consciousness as described above. This will lead one to the path of liberation. So that's where the situation that we're in. Another famous verse in the Bhagavad-gita, Yad karoshi, yad ashnasi, yad jahosi dadasi yad, tad karushamad arpanam, that all that you do, all that you offer, all that you give away, as well as all activities that you perform, that they should be done as an offering unto me. And you think of just the simple idea of offering prasadam is often one of the first things we learn besides chanting. I remember I was pretty excited as a new devotee learning how to offer prasadam, because I was already eating like all organic food, and and even had like kind of a little altar, not really, but kind of. And so the idea of taking this wonderful food and offering to Krishna and having it turn into prasadam, and it was food for the body and the soul, it was so wonderful. It was so wonderful. So it made me think of in Miami in 1975. I joined in 1974. In 1975, Srila Prabhupada came to Miami to visit. They had about 5 acres. It was underneath the banyan trees. So Srila Prabhupada was giving Bhagavad-gita class underneath the banyan trees every evening. Beautiful, balmy atmosphere, just like perfect temperature, and so mystical and transcendental. So many devotees were there. And Prabhupada was talking about prasadam and the power of prasadam. And he even said, all of you have come to me from prasadam, even you, Abhiram, who was the temple prasadam, who was the temple president. So at one point, one of the devotees raised their hand and said, Srila Prabhupada, is it true that if someone takes prasadam, that he's guaranteed a human birth in his next life? And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, that is true. And so all the devotees began to cheer, Haribol, yay, like we've got it made, just dancing and singing. And so when all the cacophony kind of calmed down, Srila Prabhupada said, there are some species of monkeys that are considered human. So that kind of sobered everybody up and made us realize there was more to do than just take prasadam. So the idea is how to, really how to purify our heart and how to maneuver ourselves through this material world, through the, through the modes of goodness and passion and ignorance. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, Soshiti Nakanchiti Samasarvesha Bhuteshu Madbhakti Labhate Param, where Krishna says that one in transcendental consciousness, he at once realized the Supreme Brahman, that he sees everyone equally, And in that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. So that is our goal, is to be able to perform pure devotional service. Also, a very beautiful verse, Bhakti mam abhijanati yavan yas chastami tattvataha tatomam tattvaton yatva vishite tad anantaram, where Krishna says that when one understands completely Supreme Personal Godhead, he comes to full realization of the Supreme Personal Godhead, and understands him in pure devotional service, that then he's qualified to enter the kingdom of God. So that's what we're being trained up to do. We're being trained up to enter the kingdom of God. Sometimes you hear people saying, "Oh, I just want to go back home, back to Godhead," or but it's easy, but it's not that easy. In other words, as we perform our service, it'll be an easy transition from one body to the next. It's like if you were to instantly be transmitted to the spiritual world, would you really like it there, where everyone's glorifying Krishna, everyone's serving Krishna? Would you be ready for that? So if we're not ready for that, it's not that Krishna's unkind and doesn't want to let us in. He can't wait for us to come, but he wants to see that we are purified and that we're able to serve with that consciousness. Once I was reading the story of Didichi Muni. It's really amazing because Didichi Muni, he was asked by the sages to give his bones to help to churn the ocean of milk. And Didichi Muni, he was kind of funny, he's being a little sarcastic, like, well, why would I do that? Everybody's body is so dear to them. Why would I give you my bones, just so you can perform this task? But ultimately he did. He gave his bones for the ocean milk. And it said that Didichi Muni, he was so Krishna conscious that he didn't know when he transferred his body, like when he left his material body and gained his spiritual body, he didn't even know. He just he was doing the same thing. So, as we become more attached, to our devotional service, and we can become more absorbed in Krishna's pastimes, it will be a completely natural transition. I once had a dream, and I don't have a lot of transcendental dreams, and mostly I don't even remember my dreams, but this particular case was right after I read that pastime of Didichi Muni, and I was kind of bewildered, like, how could someone be so Krishna conscious that they wouldn't even know when they left their material body and they took their spiritual body? How could that happen? So that night I had a dream, and I dreamt that I was in a big auditorium. This, of course, was after Srila Prabhupada left. I was in a big auditorium, and Srila Prabhupada was giving class. And I was like, wow, Prabhupada's giving class. And I was just listening so intently, and I was so absorbed in Prabhupada, listening to his every word and feeling grateful for every second that I could be there. And then all of a sudden, I thought, where am I? Like, I didn't know who was next to me. I didn't know where I was. All I knew was Srila Prabhupada. And I woke up and I thought, that's how I can be absorbed. It's just being absorbed in Srila Prabhupada, and just to be absorbed in the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. So as we perform our service without proprietorship, without ownership, of course, you think, well, what is the impetus for most people to perform their duties, perform work, like if someone learns that, guess what, the company's bankrupt, we can't pay you anymore, but we'd like you to come in and help. Probably not going to happen. People are going to look for another job. So there isn't that, there isn't that bhakti, there isn't that devotion. But for devotees, oftentimes when life can be falling apart around them, that is what keeps them stable, is their devotional service. I've even heard in Puri that sometimes people, families, they will have the same service, year after year, and even hand down that service and kind of passing the torch, so the next generation will have that same service. So that's what we're aspiring for. That's what we want to be, so attached to our service and so attached to perfecting our service. One of my services, I usually get up at 3:15 in the morning, and I go to the temple and I look for all the fragrant flowers, all the flowers I can find on the temple grounds. And sometimes it's very easy, but like right now, it's pretty difficult because there aren't a lot of flowers, and there's been so much rain, and it's been, there was like a freeze, and so they're very limited. There's some azaleas. That's pretty much what I'm finding right now. So what I did is I went online and I looked up the most fragrant flowers in the world, and I made a list of them, yellow jessamine, magnolias and gardenias and poa-caney and jasmine flowers. And so, I put the flowers that I can find, but also I meditate on all these other beautiful flowers that can be offered to Krishna. So, just like the Brahmana who was meditating on the sweet rice, he didn't have the facility to really make it as nice as he wanted to, but he meditated on going to the river and getting golden pots, and silver pots filled with Ganges water, and coming back and doing the bathing paraphernalia, and then going ahead and measuring out the milk, and the milk taken from the best place, that would please Krishna, and the sweetener, and stirring it. And of course, we know the result, that when the Brahmana went to test the sweet rice, even though it was all being done mentally, he burned his finger. And because of intense meditation, right away, Krishna knew about it, and he descended on a swan chariot, and he brought that Brahmana right back home back to Godhead. So we have the opportunity right now to be able to be absorbed, in whatever our service is, pandemic or no pandemic, when things are going right, when things are going wrong. Like recently, I've had some, real challenges in my life, and bringing up some feelings of anger, and just really praying, like, gosh, I don't want to have these feelings in my heart, but they're there. So what to do, how to deal with these kinds of situations and sometimes they may be with devotees, which makes it even more complicated. You don't want to make an offense toward a devotee. At the same time, it's hard to understand, like, why something's happening in a certain way. So it made me really reflect, Tattenu Kampam Shikshamik Shamano Jivana Eva Amakritam Vipakam Vidvag Bapurva Vidham Namaste Jiveta Yo Mukti Pari Chadaya Bak, where Krishna says that one who goes on tolerating the reactions of his past activities, he goes on paying his obeisances, he goes on serving the Supreme Personal Godhead. He continues with his duty without, no matter what happens, that the spiritual world is his rightful claim. So it's such a beautiful verse, and it's so comforting. That also made me think of King Anga. King Anga, he was married to the daughter of Sin personified, and they had a son named Vena. And Vena, you may know, he was known for being completely cruel. He would torture and even kill his friends. So you can imagine the distress this must have caused the king and the queen. So King Anga, he tried everything. He tried, positive affirmations and positive reinforcement to reform Venu, and he tried punishing him, and whatever he tried, it just didn't work. So finally, King Anga, he gave up. He decided to go to the forest and, meditate in the Supreme Personal Godhead and perfect his life. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, that's why Krishna did it. Krishna made that arrangement so that King Anga would give up the kingdom. He didn't want him just, for his whole life, just maintaining the kingdom. He wanted him to be able to go and meditate on him, and go back to Godhead. So, it may not always be that we're suffering from sinful activity. It may be that Krishna's giving us special mercy so that we can elevate ourselves, so we can learn those qualities of patience and tolerance that are so important. Tam Tiksha Shiva Bharata, that we have to learn to tolerate without being disturbed. Easily said, but sometimes very, very difficult to do. But we have all these examples of devotees in Bhagavatam, and devotees that we know. Jayananda is an excellent example of someone who was fighting leukemia, a very serious disease. And he just continued doing his service. He continued working on the Rath Yatra cart. He once took the grease that was used to, keep the wheels moving smoothly, and he ate some of it, considered it Mahaprasadam from the Rath Yatra cart. And so many devotees, they are able to exemplify these incredible qualities of tolerance. So when, in one sense, if we can embrace these situations that come to us with tolerance, and embrace them as a way of coming closer to Krishna, then it doesn't feel like you're being punished. It feels like Krishna is giving us an opportunity. So how to purify our hearts? Queen Kunti gives us some warning signs. She gives us like 4 warnings about things we have to be careful of in our search and in our struggle to purify ourselves. One of them is high parentage. That, like Arjuna, he came from a great family, so he didn't want to fight with his relatives. Or if you're from a high family, you may think, I'm a Brahmana, I'm special, I'm above everybody else. And of course, Prabhupada really smashed this idea of just because someone's born a Brahmana that they're such a great devotee. He said, no, a Brahmana is not by my birth. Brahmana is by good behavior. And really that is what Krishna is looking for, that good behavior, that loving attitude. So, but high parentage, it can be a blessing. People can use it. They can use their good qualities they've gained from a high birth and use it in Krishna service, or they can use it as a way to feel separate from somebody else. And of course, a pure devotee, Vidyavinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavihastani Shuni Shaiva Pakecha Sambita Samadarshina, that the great sage, he sees with equal vision. He sees the Brahmana, he sees the elephant, he sees the dog, he sees the dog eater, he sees the outcast, because he's seeing the soul. So, and that's our goal, to see everything equally. And that's how we can, when we go out and meet the non-devotee, we can see the soul and get past, the outer covering. Another obstacle to purifying ourselves is wealth. When someone's wealthy, it's very easy to become, puffed up, like, I've got this and I've got that, and you're ordering people around, and everybody is bowing down to you because I remember hearing that Bezos, he had this big yacht and he was traveling through Europe, and he came to some big bridge in Netherlands, and they somehow or other, they either dismantled part of it, or they, I don't know if he paid for it, or they're hoping to get some, Amazon jobs there in their country. But, because of his wealth, he was able to arrange something like that. So when you have a lot of wealth, it can be a real deterrent to spiritual life. Of course, even in the Bible, it says it's easier for a rich man to go through the eye of a needle than it is for him to enter heaven, because there are so many obstacles to feeling superior. Of course, again, that can be used in the service of the Lord. You have, Ambarish and his wife Swaha, who are very wealthy, but they use their money in the service of the Lord and in building a temple for the Lord. I know Giri Raj Maharaj has also used a lot of his money for building the temple. And Prabhupada once said to him, just like you are building a temple for Krishna to live in, Krishna's building you a house in the spiritual world, that when you come back, that you'll have a beautiful place to live in. So high parentage, and then there's a wealth, and also education. High education can be a real problem because, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said in one of his songs that all this education has rendered me more useless than an ass. It was kind of funny because as I was reading about this, I came upon the word jackassery, which is one of the most looked up words this week because one of the senators was using it. He was talking about the jackassery of having all the cameras in the courtroom and what a distraction it was. It just jackassery, great word. So yeah, that high education, like Radhanath Maharaj was talking about he went to one university and one of the devotees brought this professor to have darshan, and speak with him. So Radhanath Maharaj was saying this professor, he had such an extensive vocabulary. He knew so many big words that he said, really, and Radhanath Maharaj is very well educated. He's a brilliant man, but he didn't understand half of what he said. But he also said that he felt bad because when he left, he realized he hadn't taken anything away from the discussion. He hadn't changed his life at all. And of course, when we approach great sages, tadvidi paripatena, pariprashena sevaya, upadakshanti tayanam, yaninas tatvidarshina, that one should learn the truth by approaching the spiritual master. One should inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge to you because he's seen the truth. So he can give that to someone if someone is open to it. Just like if we don't want to listen to Krishna, Krishna won't talk to us. But if we do want, then he will. He'll speak to us in so many ways. There's that. So many ways that Krishna can communicate, with his devotee. And then the last, let's say, obstacle that Queen Kunti mentions, Janmaishvarya Stuta Shri. So wealth and high parentage and high education and beauty. So someone who's very beautiful, if you say to them, oh, ma'am, you're not this body, or my dear sir, you're not this body. Like, what do you mean I'm not this body? I am this body. I love this body. This body is wonderful. People worship me because of my beauty. They're not going to be very excited to hear that. Of course, dukkhalayam shashvatam, this world is temporary and miserable, and as time goes on, the beauty fades. We all know the story of the woman who separated her beauty and kept it in a pot. She, someone who fell in love with her, she asked them to leave. And then when they came back to find her, she said she looked all haggard because she had been purging herself, so she was all wrinkled and haggard. And he goes, well, where's the beautiful woman that was here? He said, well, the beauty is separated. You can look at it over there. So he went over there and it's full of, vomit and, stool and all of that. So, beauty is temporary, but it's very intoxicating. I remember when I was young, and everyone's beautiful, when they're young, and, people are opening doors for you and pleased to speak with you. And, it is very intoxicating. However, like if you tell an ugly person you're not that body, they'll be like, wow, you mean there's like another level to operate on. There's another level that I can exist on besides this bodily platform. They're very happy to be able to hear about it. So we can be aware of those Janmaishvarya, Stuta that we try to avoid those pitfalls and try to be steady on the path of pure devotional service. I love this story that was shared about Dhenukasura, and how Dhenukasura, he had to deal with Kamsa. He was in charge of all the tala fruits that were completely delicious, nectarian, and fragrant. The fragrance was carried so far over the countryside, even into the city, so that Kamsa, he had to deal with Dhenukasura. He said, I'd like you can have all the tala fruits you want, but you have to give, you and your family, but you have to give the rest to me. So Dhenukasura was fine, that's fine. So he kept everybody else out of the forest. It was a deal between him and Kamsa. So as he ate the fruits, the Krishna, the cowherd boys, they wanted to offer those fruits to Krishna and Balaram. They knew that it wasn't right. So just like, we like to keep all the fruits of our actions for ourselves, or that we used to, or we're in the midst of transferring the fruits from ourselves to Krishna. So the cowherd boys, they wanted to have those fruits. They went to Krishna and Balaram. They said, Krishna and Balaram, these are the tala fruits. They're the best fruits. Please, you're Bhakti-vatsal. You're the lover of your devotees. So can you please help us and get these fruits? So they're like, yeah, sure, of course, let's go. So, if you ever heard that song, today in the forest of Talavan, Lord Krishna and Balaram kill the demon Dhenukasura by whirling him around and around. So they go up and they start eating the fruits, and Dhenukasura, he gets wind of it pretty quickly, and he gets in front of Balaram, and he gets those hind legs, and he smashes Balaram. Balaram doesn't move. Balaram's kind of like, is that all you got? Is that all you can do? So again, Dhenukasura, he gets himself in position, takes a deep breath, and wham, he gives him all he got. And Balaram grabs his hind legs, and he he throws him into the tala tree, finished. And as all the other jackasses come up one by one, Balaram does the same thing, whirls them around and throws them up into the tall tree until, and Krishna book explains, it's like a panorama of color. There's so much color. And then the cowherd boys, they proceed to take those fruits and offer them to Krishna and Balaram. Explains that Balaram, he's the original spiritual master. So as we serve the spiritual master, as I mentioned, the spiritual master can impart that knowledge to you. So we see in so many instances, there's so many ways to serve, by hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, by offering respectful worship, offering him prayers, becoming a servant, considering Krishna your best friend, and surrendering everything unto him. So there's so many beautiful examples of devotees who are famous for doing that, like Dhruva. Of course, Dhruva started out with a material motivation, and just meditating on the Supreme Person of Godhead, because his mother, who was a great devotee, in his misery of being rejected from his father, who was sitting on the throne, and being so hurt, and we often find ourselves in those kind of situations, like we feel insulted, we feel hurt, like where to take those feelings. It's just like anger can rise up almost out of nowhere, and we don't want those kind of feelings. We don't know what to do with them. So Dhruva took instruction from his mother, and she said, worship Krishna. So Dhruva did. He started out just eating fruits, and then he went on to just eating leaves, and he went on to just drinking water. Then he wasn't drinking or eating anything at all, and he perceived the Lord in his heart. He could see Krishna in his heart, but all of a sudden that vision faded. And he was so much in distress. He opened his eyes, but there Krishna was right in front of him. So Krishna was still there. And of course, Krishna came and he offered Dhruva his material desire, because akamasava kamava moksha karmodara dikti braina bhakti yogina jajeta purisham param, that Krishna says, whatever you want, if you want something material, you want something spiritual, you want to merge into the, into the Brahman, whatever you want, still you worship Krishna for it. So that's what Dhruva did. He wanted something material. He wanted his own planet. He wanted to show everybody, that he was deserving of the highest respect. But when he saw Krishna, then he realized that it was nothing, that all those material desires were nothing compared to that pure love that he was feeling for the Supreme Person of Godhead. Also, I've been reading about the Prachetas, and the Prachetas, they were told to worship Krishna, and they went in the water. Well, actually, Lord Shiva also taught them a special song to worship the Supreme Lord with. And they were under the water worshiping the Supreme Person of Godhead for 10,000 years. And when they came out, Krishna was so pleased with them that he offered them all benedictions. And he specifically said, because you're all getting along, that's why he showered them with so much love, that they perfected their worship to him and that they were all getting along. So, and he says that devotees, that we should get along, that there shouldn't be any material reason that we're not getting along. I'm for Trump, I'm for Biden, I'm for Putin, amazingly enough, there's all these things going on anytime, and there can be devotees on any side. I've seen it, and it can be distressful. Let's say you're from Ukraine, and there's some Russian devotees who are like, "Go Putin." That can be very distressful, but that's not our business. Our business is to purify our hearts, to see the beauty of every spirit soul, and to perfect our devotional service so that we can go back home, back to Godhead, at the end of this lifetime. And we can also help other people, attain that same perfection. So, so many examples, even example of Chitraketu, great devotee who was very connected to the Supreme Person of Godhead, but made the mistake of laughing at Lord Shiva and Parvati, and was cursed by Parvati, and ended up, fighting with Indra. Indra didn't want to fight anymore, and Chitraketu, who became Vritasura, the demon, because he was cursed, he speaks to Indra. He shows his bhakti and why it's important for him to fight. And ultimately, he's killed, and he goes back to Godhead because he's a devotee in the body of a demon. So we never really know how advanced someone is. Also, with preaching, I was reading where Prabhupada was giving a very amazingly broad definition of preaching. He was talking about how, there's the devotees on the front lines, the devotees on the sidelines, there's devotees on the back lines, and then there's the personalities who are just appreciative and sympathetic of Prabhupada's movement. And Prabhupada basically said that all these devotees attain the same result. They all attain the same result. Made me think of a devotee who I used to visit before. She was a young devotee, but she had severe diabetes, and she had first her toes cut off, her ankles cut off, her there was very little left of her. And I was visiting her, and she said that she had a dream. She had a dream about Prabhupada. She told you in this dream, and this devotee had been having some doubts about her devotional service. She felt like, she couldn't do very much. She wasn't doing very much. She couldn't do it because of her physical situation. And she felt very bad about it. So in her dream, Prabhupada was pointing to all these, like if you had a football game, they keep the score. So there were millions of those. There were millions of them. Prabhupada was pointing to them, showing her like each of these clicker signs. They each represented a devotee, and they were all within like 3 or 4 points of each other. So basically, we're all in this together, and we have to really appreciate each other. That one class I was listening to, this wonderful devotee was explaining that preaching can be smiling at someone. Preaching can be saying thank you, because good behavior cannot be minimized. Like, I know for myself, before I became a devotee, I researched all kinds of different groups, I wanted to find the truth. I knew I couldn't find it in Catholicism. I pretty much exhausted my search there, and I was still searching for it. So, it wasn't just words. It wasn't just words I was looking for. It wasn't just the philosophy I was looking for, because everybody has a philosophy, but it was really, for me, the devotees, that the way they behave, their love, their warmness, their enthusiasm. Like yesterday, we're trying to launch a devotee care program here in New Ramanreti, so that all the devotees can be involved in sharing this ecstatic service for caring for each other. So I was bringing prasadam to this beautiful woman who suffers from Parkinson's. And so I spent a little time with her, we talked, and later on she sent me a text and said, oh, thank you so much for coming and bringing prasadam. And, it meant so much to me. So you can never underestimate the beauty of appreciating a devotee's service, even if something's small, and of doing service for a devotee who may be suffering. They may be having some anxiety about the situation that they're in, because sometimes just, let's say there's a death. Let's say there's a death in the family. A tradition of a lot of the different churches is that they bring prasadam. I know in the Jewish faith, I think like for even a week, they call it sitting Shiva, maybe, where people come and they bring food, and they're just there to comfort those that are bereft, and just being together helps that situation. So if we can do that, that's the real preaching. And I did want to read something too, something very beautiful that I thought was so meaningful to me. This is from the 3rd canto, chapter 33. And this is the activities of Kapila. So the verse goes, oh, how glorious are they whose tongues are chanting your holy name. Even if born in the families of dog eaters, such persons are worshipable. Persons who chant the holy name of your lordship must have executed all kinds of austerities and fire sacrifices and achieved all the good manners of the Aryans. To be chanting the holy name of your lordship, they must have bathed at holy places of pilgrimage, studied the Vedas, and fulfilled everything required. Purport. As it is stated in the previous verse, a person who was once offensively chanted the holy name of God becomes immediately eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices. One should not be astonished by this statement of Srimad Bhagavatam. One should not disbelieve or think How? By chanting the holy name of the Lord? Can one become a holy man to be compared to the most elevated Brahmana? To eradicate such doubts in the minds of unbelievers, this verse affirms that the stage of chanting of the holy name of the Lord is not sudden, but that the chanters have already performed all kinds of Vedic rituals and sacrifices. It is not very astounding, for no one in this life can chant the holy name of the Lord unless he has passed all lower stages, such as performing the Vedic ritualistic sacrifices, studying the Vedas, and practicing good behavior like that of the Aryans. All this must first have been done. So that means that all of us who are chanting Hare Krishna, this isn't our first time. According to this, we've done all that ritualistic activities. We've done all the, the activities that oftentimes are really just fruit of activities. Like you're performing the ritualist activities because, you want wealth. It starts with the platform of religiosity, where people follow the rules of mundane religion. Why are they following them? So they get blessing, they give us this day our daily bread. So then they get some economic development. With the economic development, then they have more chance for sense gratification. And that's kind of where in the 60s, 70s, where a lot of the youth were, that they, they had experienced all of that. They, their parents, after World War II, they just wanted to be peaceful. They wanted to have economic development. That was enough for them. But for their children who had all that and still weren't happy, they wanted more sense gratification. But when they got tired of that, they started looking elsewhere. They wanted something higher than that. And of course, when you want something like that, then Krishna answers. So anyway, let me just finish reading this. No one in this life can chant the holy name of the Lord unless he has passed all lower stages. All this must have been done, just as a student in a law class is to be understood to have already graduated from general education. Anyone who is engaged in the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, must have already passed all the lower stages. So you passed all the lower stages, and you're here in a most elevated situation. It is said that those who simply chant the holy name with the tip of the tongue are glorious. One does not even have to chant the holy name and understand the whole procedure, namely the offensive stage, the offenseless stage, and pure stage. If the holy name is sounded on the tip of the tongue, that is also sufficient. It is said herein that nama, a singular number, one name, Krishna or Ram, is sufficient. It is not that one has to chant all the holy names of the Lord. The holy names of the Lord are innumerable, and one does not have to chant all the names to prove that he has already undergone all the processes of Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. If one chants once only, it is to be understood that he has already passed all the examinations, not to speak of those who are chanting always 24 hours a day. So often Prabhupada would make that point. When he was reading, let's say he's reading the pastime of Putana, and Putana finally sucks out her breath and her life, and she attains liberation. And Prabhupada says, so this is Putana, who is a demon, but Krishna sees her as a mother because she offered her breast milk. What to speak of all of you? What to speak of all of you who are every day trying? So, and we can have faith, that's the idea of having faith that, Krishna, he's our provider, he's our proprietor, he's gonna maintain us. I think it was Shrivas who Lord Chaitanya said his son died, and he was just kind of chastising the women who were crying. He said, why are you crying? After all, he said, our son, the Supreme Personal God, Lord Chaitanya, is here, and Lord Chaitanya is chanting. Our son died. Hearing that, he's gone back to Godhead. And Lord Chaitanya says to him, he says, you know what, Shrivas? He said that, you never, everything you want will come to you. You don't have to do anything else. Everything, because of your faith, you don't have to do anything else. So, we may not have like that much faith that we could do that, but still we have enough faith that we've dedicated our lives to Srila Prabhupada and our gurus, who are leading us down this very exalted path. Something else that I found very interesting, I taught in this community for like 27 years. So one day I was talking to a parent of one of my students, and she was explaining to me, she was in another Sangha, and she was saying that, her daughter was a teenager and she wanted her just to stay pure because her guru had said that she would be able to go back to Godhead in this life because she hadn't committed any sinful activities. And she said, whereas myself, my guru told me I couldn't go back to Godhead because I had eaten meat and I had, had illicit sex and like that. So I was like, no, that's not true. Prabhupada said, if we chant 16 rounds and follow the 4 Vedic principles, we'll go back to Godhead after this lifetime. And she said, that is your guru. You're very fortunate. My guru didn't say that. So it really struck me that how fortunate we are. Even someone actually said to this guru, he told him that. He said, Prabhupada said, we can go back to Godhead, chanting 16 rounds. And he said, no one can do it. He said, but Prabhupada said, and he could even point it out. He said, Prabhupada said, okay, well, if Prabhupada said, then that is true. And we're all in this same line of disciplic succession, because just like Prabhupada, he didn't change anything. He just gave us the Bhagavatam as it is. He gave the Bhagavad-gita, even called it Bhagavad-gita As It Is. He gave us everything as it is. And his disciples have taken up this process of initiating. They're also presenting it as it is. So we're learning to depend on Krishna. We're learning not to take any nirashi or nirmama. We're not taking any ownership, proprietorship. We're understanding that Krishna's the doer, and we're praying that nimitta matram, that we can just become an instrument. We can become Krishna's instrument, and he can use us as he sees fit. So many miracles can be performed when we're a pure instrument. So I think we'll stop here. Anybody that has appreciation, a reflection, a question, a correction, anything, now's a good time. Is anybody out there? Oh, I think it's not. The sound is on. I don't know.
Yeah, people can unmute themselves if they have a question.
I have a question.
Sure.
If Srila Prabhupada says that we already went through all sacrifices and penances, and that's why we hear chanting. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, this low birth, very low birth, in very low family, in very low, in a way, I mean, there is always something good, but in general, the birth is low. So how come? It sounds like we still had some things to reactions from the previous life if we receive this type of birth. So
I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Okay.
All right. So the thing is, not necessarily. We look at somebody like Haridas Thakur, who was born in a Muslim family, and he was the Namacharya, or even Narada Muni. He was in a situation where he never really heard who his father was, but his mother was serving the sages. He got a lot of mercy. So, and I misplaced. There was another verse I wanted to read, but it was talking about how that it's very difficult for someone with high parentage, good education, beauty, and wealth to muster up this sincere feeling to chant the holy name of the Lord with sincere feeling. So, you know, we can't really say, you know, why we were born in the family we were born into, because even if we engage in sinful activities, sometimes that's like the last burnout, you know what I mean? It's the last burnout before we're like, wow, this world is Duklayam Shashvatam. It is miserable and temporary. So Prabhupada does say that, you know, he does say that. So I guess one of the advantages is that we can be humble. We can be humble about our origins. We're not puffed up like, wow, look at me, I'm a great Brahmana, and all of that. So I think that's the beauty. And it's Devahuti who I believe chants that verse. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, the verse that says that it's hard to approach the Lord with sincere feeling when you're in a situation where everything's great, and we've seen it. We've seen that. So does that help at all?
I have an additional question about that,
Sure.
but that sounds a little bit like Srila Prabhupada contradicts himself. I mean, the scriptures, when he says, when devotees ask him, is that correct? We just have that, we already went through everything in the previous life. And he said, it's just by my mercy.
It's true.
You became devotee, not because you had something good done.
I think it can be both. I think it can be either or, you know, it doesn't have to be one or the other. But Prabhupada did say that when devotee said, but for Prabhupada, you know, Prabhupada said, I have created your pious activity. So that's also true that, you know, the mercy of the Guru, if he, you know, finds it fit to bestow that mercy upon you, then that can be all the accumulated pious activities, boom, just like that. So I think it can be either, you know, it can be either way, both. But, you know, we're just fortunate, right? We're just fortunate. And just to be able to feel that good fortune and to be able to chant that holy name with sincere feeling, that's a sign that we understand our good fortune.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for a wonderful question. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Sukhada Dasi Prabhu.
Andrea.
I'm really inspired by what you shared in terms of the devotee care that you're helping set up in terms of Alachua, just because I've heard other senior devotees, especially Vaishnavi devotees, talk about the importance of devotee care and how we may be inviting other people to come to our temples or to join Krishna consciousness, but if we're not taking care of the devotees that are already there, then like, what's the point, you know? So I would love to hear maybe some other anecdotes or stories that you can share that highlight the importance of devotee care just from the work that you're doing.
Sure. I mean, one story that really struck me, and this is a story when Srila Prabhupada was in the airport and someone brought him this big plate of fruit and, you know, milk, sweets, and like that. So they gave it to Prabhupada. Prabhupada took a little bit of it. And this devotee, Prabhupada gave the plate back to the devotee. And the devotees went to go distribute it to the karmis. And Prabhupada said, no. He said, charity begins at home. So he had him distribute that maha to the devotees. So yeah, it was very important to Prabhupada. In fact, this is a beautiful story with the early devotees. They're the very first pandal, I believe, in Delhi, and they really went all out, you know, the advertising and the setting up, and they had a great success. And they were all completely wasted, you know, really worn out. And Jamuna actually was quite sick. So Prabhupada kept asking, you know, where's Jamuna? Where's Jamuna? And the devotee said, oh, Prabhupada, she's resting. She's not feeling well, you know. But after a couple of days, Prabhupada said, where is she? And Jamuna was actually in a closet on the bottom shelf, resting there. So Prabhupada went up there, and Jamuna said when she opened the door, she saw Prabhupada's lotus feet. And Prabhupada said, Jamuna, how are you? And she said, I'm fine, Prabhupada, now that you're here, now that I see you. So Prabhupada went over and felt her head, and she had a fever. And then he looked at her, and he realized that she had jaundice, she had hepatitis. So he immediately arranged for a room for her right next to his. He immediately summoned an Ayurvedic doctor to come in and take care of her. And he personally watched while the medicine was administered, because it was very bitter. He made sure she took it so she would be cured. So that's Prabhupada's example. Another time, it might have been Jadharani was in the hospital, and Prabhupada said, okay, we're all going to go visit her, So Prabhupada was kind of leading the way, showing that it's important. And of course, when someone's sick, disabled, whatever like that, they're really in a very vulnerable position. And we feel that if we call ourselves a family, if we're really a family, then we should be able to care for each other. So what we've done in Alachua, because in the past we've had incredible devotee care programs. Only problem is impossible to maintain, because so many devotees that ultimately people just couldn't do it anymore. They got burned out. So Andrea, what we've tried to do is divide the community into 12 neighborhoods, and each neighborhood will be responsible for the cares of the devotees for 1 month, because we kind of figure you can do anything for 1 month, and then it'll go on to the next neighborhood. So we're getting things ready for that. It's planned to start it in May. We already have some captains for each neighborhood that will help the rest of the members of the neighborhood get enlivened. And so they'll be able to do things like visit devotees in the hospital. Like one devotee who for a long time was really suffering from depression. We arranged it so we would just bring this devotee Sunday feast, every week. And at one point that devotee said, you don't know what this has done for me. You have no idea what this has done. If I can ever do anything to help you, please let me know. So little gestures like that can go such a long way. Or devotees in the hospital, one devotee, Prabhupada disciple, who actually lost the use of his legs, and he had a staph infection, just because it's really difficult to not be able to move around much. So visiting devotees, and just reading to them, talking to them. Krishna says, by pleasing and serving my devotee, I am happier than when you please me. So that is our impetus for creating this program, is that so many things that we can increase devotee loving relationships, that we can actually assist devotees. It'll also involve end of life care, because there's so many older devotees in this community. So the most recent devotee that left was probably Shankar Prabhu. And, devotees do kirtan 24/7 when it comes close to the end. So just really trying to assist each other, and remembering Krishna, and following Prabhupada's example. Is that helpful, Andrea?
It's helpful and so inspiring. Thank you so very much.
I know you'll be able to be part of it, when all this...
That's why we're trying to buy our house closer to Alachua, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So if Krishna willing, we'll be able to.
Oh, that's wonderful. Glad to hear it.
I think there was a question from Asht Mishra, or did you want to ask a question before?
Hare Krishna, everyone. Hare Krishna Mataji. Very nice to see your experience. and I wanted to know more about Mataji, but now I knew a little bit. But if you can share some of the experience with the Prabhupada, that will be great. And I
Oh,
always, yeah. Thank you so much.
okay, sure. I first saw Srila Prabhupada because I joined the temple. Actually, about 7 or 8 of us, we were friends, and we were all, we're all practicing yoga. We were already vegetarians, and we were looking for, the absolute truth. So, Mukhya, Mother Mukhya, who's the temple president here, she was, my good friend, and so we all joined the temple in Detroit, and I stayed there for a while, and then I moved to Miami. And I mentioned how Prabhupada came to Miami and spent, some days there, and once he was staying in one house, and in the back of the house on the porch, he would get a massage. Sri Kid would give him a massage. So this one time, I was coming back from Sankirtan, and I forgot that I wasn't supposed to go back there. So I started to go back, and the devotees like, Bhaktin Sandy. I was a Bhaktin Sandy. So they brought me in the house, and it was kind of funny because it was like there was one head on top of another head on top of another head on top of another, and my head went on top of that. And we're all watching Srila Prabhupada get a massage, and his skin was so perfectly glowing, effulgent, and golden. So we watched that. And also, we followed Srila Prabhupada. I might have already told some of these stories, I don't know. We followed Srila Prabhupada on traveling Sankirtan because Prabhupada went from Miami, then he went to Atlanta. So we followed him everywhere. We do Sankirtan in between, and then, we saw him in Washington, D.C., and we saw him in New Vrindavan. We saw him in Philadelphia, where I got initiated. We saw him in New York, saw him in Detroit, saw him in Chicago. And each time we'd see him, it's like we felt like we could see him, let's say, clearer and deeper, because in between times we were distributing Prabhupada's books, and we would usually do the lights, I mean, I don't know if they still do that. It's crazy. We would have our Back to Godhead magazines, and we sometimes would distribute like 300 magazines, and we would just go out to the cars and show them what we had, and they would give a donation. And then when the light turned green, we'd get back on the curb, and then we'd go out again, and we would just do that all day. So it was always wonderful. Like the first time I saw Srila Prabhupada in Miami airport, so much anticipation because I heard so much about him. So generally in my life experience, I always found my anticipation didn't meet up with my experience. I was always disappointed, no matter, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Like turning 16 didn't seem like a great thing, graduating from school, becoming 21, being able to drink alcohol, like none of it was what it was played up to be. So, everything, no matter what, getting married or, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So when I saw Srila Prabhupada, I realized that for the first time in my life, something was more than I thought it would be. It was just myself and Nartaka Gopala. We're both very tall devotees, but Abhiram gave us a service of walking in front of Srila Prabhupada and distributing flower petals and rose water. So we're just walking forward and putting the rose water and the petals at his feet. It was just so ecstatic, that we just wanted to be around him. Or in 1976 in New York, when they had the big Rath Yatra festival, I remember pulling Srila Prabhupada down Fifth Avenue, on Subhadra's cart. And it's just, there's nowhere else that I want to be. There was nothing else I wanted to do but just what I was doing, pulling Srila Prabhupada down Fifth Avenue on Subhadra's cart. I would have loved if it could have lasted forever. And I guess that's the difference between the spiritual world and the material world, is that, you know, we're subject to time, to past, present, and future. Whereas in the spiritual world, it's all present. A little hard to understand, but, you know, just that idea that, you know, you could be doing something like that, you know, forever. It was such an ecstatic atmosphere. I remember the policemen, they were so impressed, you know, because generally when there's crowds of people, there's trouble. But they were commenting on how peaceful and wonderful the ceremony was. So yeah, I also saw Prabhupada in, how much time I have? It's probably 4 minutes to 7 o'clock, but also saw Prabhupada in India quite often, in Mayapur and in Vrindavan. I would get up early and I'd see Prabhupada translating his books. Like, you know, he'd be up 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. I used to get up early and chant my rounds. And Prabhupada would always be, he'd always be up. And in Mayapur, as soon as
Mother Sukhada, if you can hear us, your video and audio has just frozen. Your video and audio just froze, and now it seems you're back.
Okay, it's okay now?
Yes, it's fine now. Thank you.
Okay. So, where was I?
Uh,
Oh, I know. We just got to Mayapur. So we went up to Prabhupada's room. We paid our obeisances. And Nartaka Gopala was thinking, here we are in Mayapur with Srila Prabhupada, but does he really want us to be here? And she looked up, you know, she turned her head and looked up, and Prabhupada was looking at us, and she said that Prabhupada was smiling, shaking his head like, yes, you're here. I want you to be here. So it's amazing how Prabhupada could communicate to a whole group of people who might have been all thinking something different, but somehow with his mystic potency was able to satisfy everyone and fulfill everyone's desires. Like we had a marathon. There was a book marathon, and you know, we went to Delhi, so all the devotees who went, they were all distributing books, and it was myself and Nartaka Gopala distributing books in Delhi, and we were both, you know, young, tall. She's even taller than me, and I'm probably 5'8.5". And so wherever we went, there was like whole crowds that gathered around us, just like looking at us, you know. So we were able to distribute so many books. So when we got back, then they counted up the scores, and besides all the men, Nartaka and I, we both made the cut. So the reward was that we were able to go with Prabhupada as he traveled to different cities, kind of like we went on traveling Sankirtan with Srila Prabhupada. And we would stay at life members' homes, and we listened to Prabhupada giving Hindi lectures. We would distribute books, and that was also really wonderful. So of course, you know, there's the Vani and the Vapu. So that, you know, we experienced the Vapu and the Vani, but sometimes I can see by the next generation. And because there's so much, what do they call it? It's like there's so much, for the first time, really, there's so much data available that it makes me confident that this movement will go on and on like never before. Like so many books translated, and you know, very historically relevant. So many conversations, all the conversations, all the videos of Srila Prabhupada, you know, for the first time ever, all of that available. So I know that devotees, it's like you can experience Prabhupada's Vapu just by listening to seeing his videos and listening to his conversations. So yeah, that's a little bit about my experiences. And I think it's 7 o'clock now. And
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
yes,
Thank you.
so much, Prabhu's. Hare Krishna. So we're going to stop here. Atmanivedana.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
It's 7:01. Does it work for you to chant Hare Krishna mantra with the group for like 1 or 2 minutes?
Sure.
Okay, and then we'll.
Do you want to have me lead, or do you want somebody else to lead, or?
I can't imagine it being better than to hear you lead the kirtan now. So if it's okay with you.
Okay, I will do. Okay. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Asatari Sarakarina Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Adonichana Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Adonichana Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Hari Hari Nitai Hari Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Panchakopa Jubhascha Kapasinivyevcha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. All glories to some of the devotees, all glories to some of the devotees, all glories to some of the devotees. Hare Krishna, Prabhus.
Hare Krishna. If devotees like to join me expressing appreciation for Sukhada Mataji for her wonderful association this evening, we can do it now. For Grace Sukhada Mataji ki jai.
Hari Om.
You're so